Middle game is tough. You often don't know what to do, waste precious time and end up making moves that backfire and ruin your game. But today, I'm gonna share a simple yet powerful middle game strategy that helped me as well as many of my students to gain hundreds of elo points. With this approach, you can take control of your game, make confident moves and see real improvement starting today. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. And today, one of the most important topics, middle game strategy. It all starts with this position. I'm playing as white. It's a tournament game, very important one for me. I really want to win this tournament. And so this is the moment of the late opening. High time for you to start planning your middle game if you want to be successful. Because if you're gonna just randomly develop all of your pieces, then you don't know what to do with it afterwards. So many players struggle with it, they waste a lot of time and then they're stuck making very weird moves they regret afterwards. Instead, here, like up to this point, it's more or less clear. You want to fight for the center, so you push those pawns, you bring your knights toward the center to control more squares and again fight for the center. You make castles because you want your king secured before going all in into the attack. But now it's time to figure out your overall plan. You absolutely must have a plan in the middle game because of two reasons. First, you have a much higher chance of actually achieving something in this game, because you're gonna have a clear goal in your mind, whereas your opponent wouldn't. And that's exactly the reason why my opponent struggled so much in this game. And second, once you have that understanding of a general idea that you want to achieve, it's so much simpler for you to find the concrete moves, because it's just instruments for you. You have this clear picture what you want to achieve, and then every single move you focus on how do I achieve that goal. Now, how do you actually come up with the right plan in chess, or how do you find it in the middle game? There are two factors that I want you to take into account to figure out a really powerful plan for yourself. First, you have to look at your strengths in the position. Which part of the board you think you are stronger. Normally you choose one part of the board, king side, queen side, or in the center where you want to attack, you want to create threats. The further you go into the game, the more concrete it's going to be. If here it's just attack on the queen side, then 10 moves later it would be attack the c5 square because that's the biggest strength that you might have, and so you should use it. And the second thing that you must take into account to figure out the right plan is to take at your opponent's weaknesses. What are the weaknesses? It's basically any problems that your opponent might have in his camp. So here you see that he is having a lot of stuff on the light squares. He's having a great control of the light squares. It's his strengths. But dark squares, however, is the weak spot that we, as his opponent, should try to use. Also, he has this stupid bishop on c8, which is very often a problem in this stone wall opening, and so that is another kind of weakness or a problem our opponent has that we can take to our advantage. With all of that information in mind, I'm now thinking what could be my plan in this position. The first one could be to explore those dark squares, because that's where I'm strong and my opponent is weak, so I might play something like bishop f4, maybe exchange those bishops, put the knight on e5, and play like that. But now I'm thinking that my opponent is stronger on the king side, and he wants to attack me here, so I'm gonna attack on the other side of the board, the queen side, and I'm stronger here, I'm gonna put pressure on him here. Now, once I have this plan, it's much simpler for me to figure out the concrete moves. Like, how do I attack here? Well, I need to push my pawns, b4, b5, create a weakness on c6, and then explore it. But I cannot play b4 because, well, the square is not covered. My opponent is gonna just take it. But I have to prepare it, and in the best case scenario, I always want to combine my plan with what really has to be done in chess, namely the development. Development is always the key. You want to bring all of your pieces into the game, but you want those pieces to help you to achieve your strategic goal. That is why I advise you to come up with a plan for your middle game when you're still in the late opening, when you're still deciding where to put those pieces. If I know that I want to attack on the queen side, I know that I have to play b4, and to achieve that, I need additional piece to support that. My rook is doing nothing on a1, and now it's very active, ready to support my idea. My opponent plays here knight b2 d7, which does not create any threat for me, so I can just continue my plan. You see, if you're not thinking about the plan in the first place, then you might consider so many different options here, like bishop f4, bishop g5, c takes d, whatever might seem reasonable for you. But if you already have decided, you have done this work beforehand of finding your general idea to attack on the queen side, then it's so much simpler for you to find the right move and to play the move b4. I mean, I'm not saying it's objectively the best move. In fact, the engine says it's a bad move because black has an incredible opportunity, which is hard to believe. Black can take here on c4, completely ruining the pawn structure, but tactically it works. But my point here is that I don't want you to make all of the right computer moves. First of all, it's not possible, and secondly, even if you do that, there is one very famous Grandmaster that is gonna ask you questions that you don't want to hear. Instead, I want your play to be consistent. I want you to have a general idea for the game, and then I want you to try to implement it. Yes, if your ideas are not that high quality, then afterwards you're going to analyze the game and understand why this plan is not that great and which one should have been the better. And so next time you are going to improve this skill and invent even a better plan. And second, the implementation phase, you do the same. After the game, you analyze and try to understand why exactly this way wasn't the best to continue my plan if the plan was great. So here I wasn't really afraid of my opponent taking this pawn on c4 because I thought I can play b5, put a lot of pressure on those pawns. His pawn structure is horrible and my bishop on g2 is becoming very, very strong. And also, it kind of ruins his main idea. So many players forget that they don't play in chess alone. In fact, that's the biggest problem that I have figured out with thousands of my coaching sessions with my students, because they play as if they are alone in chess. And that's a huge mistake because you're never alone. You always have to think, what is your opponent's plan? That is basically all chess is about. You invent your own plan, you try to understand what your opponent's plan, and then who is the first one to execute his plan correctly and create really dangerous threats for the opponent. That player is more successful and is gonna win the game. So my opponent plays here knight to e4. And for a second, I have to forget about all of my plans whenever my opponent makes a move and try to understand, okay, what is the threat, what he wants to achieve. So to be successful in the chess middle game, you always and always have to focus on two things. First, what is your plan and how to execute it? And second, what is your opponent's plan and how to stop it? You should not make any moves at all which are not trying to achieve one of these two goals. Either you're trying to achieve your plan, your general idea, your goal, or you're trying to stop your opponent's plan. So my opponent wants to play here in the center. He controls this e4 square many times. Now he's using it and he's creating a threat for me. My knight is hanging. So what I do? Well, I try to deal with his threat, but at the same time do something useful. I want to develop my queen. I want to continue attacking on the queen side. And so I combine that with defending against my opponent's threat. That's exactly what you should try to achieve. Make those multi-purpose moves. My opponent plays here the move a6. That is not a move that is following his plan, but that is a move that is stopping my plan. If I'm too straightforward now with my idea and play b5, that is actually a very, very bad thing, because he's going to exchange it. And then he's going to play the move c5. And that is great for him, because suddenly my attack here is stuck, and he is attacking in the center exactly what he wanted to do, because he is stronger there, and I cannot really create any threats. And so that is the right plan, but the wrong execution of this plan. That is not something you want to achieve. So before, even if you think, okay, it's clear what my plan is, I want to achieve that, I want to open up the position on the queen side and try to create threats there. Once you see a way to implement your plan, you first need to calculate the variations and try to understand, okay, how can my opponent react? What kind of possibilities he has? And this way, my opponent closes my queenside attack, but creates a lot of problems for me. That's no good. What could be a better way to implement the same idea of attacking on the queenside? I still want to do it. I have perfect conditions for it. I just need to be more prepared. So one way could be just to play a4. Very reasonable. Engine also supports it. If that was your idea, I 100% agree, because you just prepare that move b5 better. You don't allow your opponent to shut down your initiative that easily, and b5 is coming. I was a little bit more creative than that, also a perfectly legitimate move. I played the move knight to a4. Remember, in the beginning we talked about those weaknesses on the dark squares that black has. Well, I want to explore it. I want to jump with my knight to c5, where it's going to be very, very active. It's going to attack that e6 pawn, which is one of the main weaknesses black has. And overall, I'm going to have very good chances. My opponent plays b5 immediately. So what I want you to understand here is how you combine your general plan, because you still have it, with all of the crazy things that are happening in the process. It's not like you are inventing a plan and then no matter what happens, you are just blindly executing. No, you have to take into account what your opponent is doing. At the same time, though, you want to make your game consistent. It's not like you are playing knight a4 one move and next time you completely forget what you wanted to do here and play h4 because, I don't know, something arises. It's not like that. You have to be consistent. The more, the better. But at the same time, you have to take into account what kind of threat your opponent is creating. So basically, if he is stopping you, if he's creating some problems alongside your plan, then you have to stop and think, okay, what do I do about that? If he is not creating something dangerous, if he is doing his stuff, then you can continue your plan and be really focused on that. Unless he's creating a very dangerous threat for you on the different part of the board, and you have to acknowledge that. So I have a lot of threats here. My knight is hanging, my pawn is hanging. It turns out the best move is c5. I'm creating a counter threat so that now if he takes, then I'm going to take his bishop and I'm actually kind of achieving my goal because now I have created weaknesses in his camp and that's going to be tough for him to handle it. And if he goes somewhere back with the bishop, then my knight can go all the way back to b2, then to go to d3 and continue exploring those dark squares weaknesses, this time e5. That would be a dream, maybe bishop f4 first, and white is better here. This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. So to be successful, you need to play on your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. I have chosen another plan. I thought, well, I want to be consistent. I played knight a4 because I want to play knight c5. So let me just do that. Yes, I could just exchange those pawns first here, but then I thought, well, this a file is very good for black. He's going to bring his knight to b6. I don't really want that. But instead I sacrificed the pawn. Now I'm creating a huge threat for him. I'm threatening to take the e6 pawn, which is hugely important, and he has to react. It's always great if you can put yourself into the driver's seat and you are the one creating threats. But remember, at the same time, it should be useful for your position, to improve your position. You don't play hope chess, you combine making useful moves and creating threats for your opponent. Then to be in reactive mode, when you are just defending without creating those active ideas. My opponent took here on c5 with the bishop. I have a choice how I want to take it. I decided that I want to take it with the b pawn. Why? Because generally it's great to take towards the center. And I thought, well, now he has a choice. He can just pick up my pawn for free. There is a very high chance he's gonna do that. But if he takes with the b pawn, then I can continue my queenside attack, maybe some threats here against the c6 pawn, maybe bring the bishop, use the b file. He didn't do that. And if he takes with the d pawn, then I have another idea. So now basically the queen side attack is over and I have to figure out a new plan. And that is completely normal in a chess game. You have a plan, you try to execute it. At some point, maybe you achieve something, maybe you don't. And then you see, okay, now I'm stuck here. I need to figure out a new plan. How do you do that? Again, you think about your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. I still want to play using those dark squares. That's where I am strong. He has everything on the light squares. He controls those, but dark squares are weak. And also he has this stupid bishop on c8, which is still light squares doing nothing. So I have to play on the dark squares. But at the same time, I still want to finish my development. I want to invite everybody to the party. Remember, this way you are the most efficient. So I'm making here the move rook to d1. I think I want to play the move knight to e5, I want to go forward, I want to attack, but I need my rook to support this whole attack in the center. Now my opponent makes a move that is incredibly instructive, and I want you to listen very carefully and learn this lesson and never repeat in your games. He's playing the move bishop to b7. He's doing that because he wants to protect this c-pawn that can be attacked through my knight, through my bishop, and so before that happens, he wants to make sure, okay, this pawn is protected and I'm good to go. That is a very bad strategy that I don't want you to follow. Why? Because there is absolutely zero useful plans that you can think of for black that include that move bishop to b7. It's absolutely not helping. This is a terrible piece there, and he's doing that only because he's in reactive mode, because he thinks, okay, I'm gonna need to defend, and so the bishop is a good defender there. No, you first think about your plan, about what you want to achieve, and then you're thinking how to make it possible. And there is not even a real threat right now. Nobody is attacking this c6 pawn. So many players are making this mistake of defending something beforehand which is not even under attack, instead of actually doing something useful. What could be the right plan for black? Well, he has so many weaknesses here on the dark squares. This e6 pawn is very weak, so a natural thing to do would be just to push it forward one way or another. The question is, how do you do it? Whether you do it immediately, which is completely fine, but well, you have to sacrifice the pawn first, but then you're gonna have a lot of weaknesses to attack. Or the second idea is to prepare that move first by playing something like queen to e8 and then play e5 next. The difficulty with that is I can block it with my move knight e5, but then again you are going to have some weaknesses, and this plan of e5 wouldn't be possible anymore, but you are going to get something as a compensation, this c5 weakness, once you change those guys, and then you are going to create a new plan based on your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. c5 and e5 are the weaknesses, so you're going to try to figure out a way to attack it. That all makes sense and is useful for black. But bishop b7 is a horrible move positionally. It's not like a blunder, he's not losing anything, but positionally it's a horrible move because it's not useful by any means, just wastes time, and now I can go on and I can continue my plan. I'm active, I'm in the driver's seat, I'm dictating my terms, whereas my opponent is passively staying there waiting for me to come. He realizes he cannot just stay like that, he has to take me. I'm taking it back, opening up the rook. The rook is very, very active. Then he plays queen to e7. He attacks my pawn on c5, but fortunately enough, I can just grab this knight first. Then I can play bishop to e3. And now I protect the pawn, and next move I'm going to take the pawn on e4, and just look at this bishop on b7. It's so miserable there. Do you know that they call the bishop an elephant in Russian? And I think you have to be penalized for such an attitude towards your animals. You just cannot do that, and hopefully you will never do that in your games. Always treat your pieces with respect. He plays here the move a5, which actually makes a lot of sense. I play queen takes e4, and surprisingly enough, this position is nearly equal according to the engine. I mean, it's so hard to believe because it feels that it's so much simpler to play as white. You control everything, and again, your pieces are just so much more active. There is a huge difference, though, between a computer evaluation and a practical understanding. Like, this position might be equal according to the computer, but from a human perspective, it's so much easier to play as white because your play is clear, it's understandable what to do. But try to figure out the right plan here for black using the strategy that we are discussing here. I hope you have taken your time because that's an extremely instructive moment here. The right move is bishop to a6. Why is that the right move? Well, because here black has 27 extra pawns on the queen side that can actually move forward and create some threats. Like, imagine this pawn coming here to c3, this one coming to b4. They are so perfect, creating some threats, and now the light squares are free, so the bishop can finally become a person. So that's the right plan, to use your strengths, which are the pawns here, and to push it forward. Unfortunately, it's not possible to do it immediately. If you play c3, I'm going to play queen c2, attacking it. You are going to play b4 to defend. I'm going to play a3, attacking it again, and the whole pawn structure collapses for you. That is why you play bishop a6 first to support those pawns, and then you're ready to push. And you're going to tell me, well, Yevhenii, but that's a huge blunder. You are forgetting about the pawn on c6. Who cares about this miserable pawn on c6? I mean, you have to get some life going on in your games that is 100 times more important than a miserable pawn. Because if you're gonna stay there passively, and we are gonna see that's exactly what my opponent did, then you're gonna lose all of your games and you're not gonna learn anything in the process. But if you're gonna focus on activity, on finding the plan, of playing on your strengths, then you're gonna get so many more chances in your games. My opponent played here a horrible move. That is rook to c8. Again, it's not a blunder, he is not losing anything, yet after this move the evaluation is huge advantage for white. So why is that? Because again, rook c8 has nothing in common with any of the reasonable plans for black. In fact, it doesn't have any plans at all. It's just saying that I want to defend my pawn, which is already defended, and it's not having any goal in mind, especially any active things that you want to do. And my opponent is like 1900 rated player. He is better than 95% of the chess players. So now you see how important this understanding of finding the right plan is. So that's exactly what differentiates a strong chess player from an average one. You have to constantly think in terms of what is your general idea, focus on that, and then try to find a way to implement it. Otherwise, if you're playing moves like that, then your opponent is just gonna be active, execute his plan, and you're just standing there like this boxer trying to avoid all of the punches, but you're never gonna win that way. And especially in the middle game, when the position is so rich, there are so many pieces on the board, you just cannot stay like that. My opponent played rook c7 and hoped that it's gonna work, but it's not, because I have so many strengths here. I have so many active pieces, I can attack, and he is not creating any threats for me. It's making my job much more simple. I think that now I'm much stronger on this side of the board from D to H file. Yeah, there are those pawns, I cannot do anything on the queen side, so my rook on b1 absolutely useless. I want to connect it to the attack. That's why I'm playing rook b to d1 here. He's playing rook to e8, which again is not useful, is just reactive. He's absolutely in reactive mode, not thinking about any active ideas on his own, and frankly now it's a little bit too late for that, and I'm thinking, okay, it's time for me to win the game. How do I do that? You're gonna love it! I have made a free 30-day training plan so you can finally fulfill your chess potential. Every day you're gonna get an educational video to improve your chess and put your knowledge into practice. I'm so excited to have you in our community, where you have an opportunity to get your game to be fully analyzed by me completely for free. Make sure to secure your free spot before it's too late. The link is in the description. Many players make this mistake of thinking, if my position is better, if I'm more active, I have sacrifice immediately now, find the checkmate. No, absolutely not. In fact, that's the opposite. There is a very useful principle of do not hurry. If your position is great, you absolutely don't need to sacrifice anything if there is no guarantee you're gonna get something great afterwards. You can just improve your position step by step until your opponent absolutely is gonna collapse. He's staying like that, and you are gonna deliver those punches one after another, like I'm doing here with the move bishop d2. I'm attacking from one side, he's trying to protect that, again cover his face, but then I'm creating another threat on e6, and the more threats you create, the more difficult it is for your opponent to handle all of that. And at one point it's just not possible. For example, here, how do you defend that e6 pawn? It's basically not possible. And only now my opponent realized he actually needs some counterplay. He actually needs to do something active. So he played the move b4. But of course, it's way too late. Now I'm just playing bishop g5 and he completely collapses. The queen has no moves to go. All of his pieces are so passive. This bishop stands the entire game on that miserable b7 square without any job at all. And now you lose your queen. If you go to f7, I just play rook to d8 check, and after that exchange, you have to give up your queen. That is why my opponent resigned here. The beauty of this game is that I haven't done any combinations, I haven't sacrificed anything, yet I completely outplayed my opponent in this middle game. Why? Because I had a very clear idea, I had a plan in each stage of the middle game. First I wanted to attack on the queen side, then I wanted to explore those weak squares, and then finally I realized I'm stronger on this side of the board, so I have brought all of my pieces here, created threats, and outplayed my opponent. Whereas he didn't have any plan at all. He wasn't attacking, he wasn't creating any threats, and lost miserably here. Being able to find the right middle game plan is just one part. If you want to holistically improve all aspects of your chess, I have prepared a detailed step-by-step process that you can take a look here to finally bring your chess to the next level.